Good evening. My name is Santiago again, and been with the Mono Lake community for 26 years, running an outdoor education program, which I love dearly. Wouldn't do anything else in life. And I was approached by Heidi, the back right there, from the institute, and say if I was willing to give a presentation, and I say, of course. And so I chose to talk about the birds, excuse me, the bird diversity of the Mono Basin. And then I'm going to touch briefly what's happening with climate change and habitat changing and birds in the Mono Basin. So I have two slideshows. The first one is going to be just about birds, little eye candy introduction to birds of the Mono Basin, which a lot of you guys know already. So with much say, we're gonna get started. And again, Kutsaba is the Kusadaka name for the local lake, and we're just gonna do a little journey of what's going on in this area, and we're gonna talk about the biodiversity of the Mono Basin, and I will highlight a few species, lake ecosystem, and conservation. We'll talk a little bit about conservation. So, Mono Basin, bird heaven, over 340 species of birds can be seen in the Mono Basin. Raise your hand if you have bird here in the Mono Basin. If you are a continuous birder in the Mono Basin. Okay, cool. So nowhere where we go, whichever area, the east side, north side, south side, west side of the lake, or the Mono Basin, we're gonna find amazing species of birds. It's a unique lake. It's probably considered one of the oldest lakes in North America. Its chemistry is unique. It's what is called the tri-element lake: sulfates, carbonates, and chlorides. And the location of the lake is ideal because it's right there in the middle of the beginning of the north part of the Pacific Flyway, eastern branch. So in the map, you can see, where we are. And believe it or not, I do birding in Colombia. And even though it's not Mono Lake, but most of the warblers I've seen in my life list, they come from the East Coast. I've seen them in Colombia because they go to Colombia to spend their winters, which just to show, the connection. So hummingbird species, about 4 species show up here regularly. Waterfowl, about 21 species. Raptors, 9 species. Woodpeckers and wood warblers, about 9 species of each. And 10 of wood warblers, and shorebirds, about 28 species. So, it's quite a variety of animals. And remember, this is just the stuff that we're going to find just near Mono Lake or in Mono Lake. But you go up in the hills and you start finding all kinds of other really interesting species. California Gull population. Now, this is an interesting bird. This was kind of indicator species birds. Houston, we got a problem. This is one of the species that was kind of the key species for the battle for Mono Lake, culminating in 1994, when the California State Water Resource Control Board said, the Mono Lake needed to rise to a particular level of 6392 feet above sea level. And California gulls were one of the species that they used to illustrate the dire need for Mono Lake to rise ASAP, because the population of California gulls were having a really hard time. Some of you have heard the stories. In 82, Land Bridge was created. Coyotes moved into Nejet Island, which used to be the main nesting area for the California gulls, and literally ate every chicken and every egg. And the population of California gulls in the Mono Basin has never been the same since then. It was guesstimated, about 55,000 nesting pairs in those days out there. But now the numbers are, 25K. But if you look at the really cool article, which I put the link down there, you can click on it, okay? There is a good article in the Mono Lake Community newsletter, published on the last newsletter, about what's happening with the California gulls and the numbers, especially if we start from last year on. They're having a really, really, really hard time. So it is an indicator species for the health of Mono Lake, and which is a good reason for us to keep fighting for Mono Lake and asking for more water for Mono Lake. right? We need to bring the lake up. No matter what they say, that's what we need. So we have ear grebes. Used to be one of the largest concentration after the Great Salt Lake in the Mono Basin. The numbers are anything between 800,000 to 260,000. The numbers fluctuate every year, but also with the decline in the availability, like shrimp and sometimes the fly, we get the high mortality rates of this bird, especially later in October into November. It's a very cool bird. I think I consider it the smartest bird that we get in the Mono Basin because they come to Mono Lake. They kind of walk. So if they land on land, they're doomed. But they're great swimmers, great divers, great flyers, and they eventually head south through the Salton Sea all the way. And I've seen them down in Baja. But I call them the smarter birds that we get in the Mono Basin because they spend their winter down in Mexico, in Baja area, eating fish tacos and drinking Coronas. Very smart bird, and it's a very interesting bird, and they're absolutely beautiful, especially when they're in the breeding plumage, and when they're in the lakes, they cannot fly that well. They are changing feathers and getting ready for their flight south. Wilson's Phalaropes, which I'm not going to point fingers at people here, but there is a eminence here in a room about Wilson Phalaropes. I'm talking about the brother, yeah. Great concern about this bird. It's an amazing traveler bird. It's a multinational traveling bird, going all the way from South Central Canada, North Central USA, where they raise their chicks and the males. And then they come through Great Salt Lake, through Mono Lake, and other lakes on the western side of the United States, which shrimp and flies. And then we're finding out more information that they may be doing some stops in places like Mexico, maybe even Central America. It was believed for many years that they will just fly straight down to the northwest corner of South America. Anybody can name one country or two countries in the northwest corner of South America? Chile's not in the northwest corner of South America. And Ecuador, okay. And then, so they land there, and then they go a little bit farther south, go up into the high Andes in Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and parts of Argentina too. And they rest there, feeding on shrimp and flies. And then they cross the Andes. And the stop up there in the Andes could be as high as 15,000 plus feet. And then they go to a beautiful lake in the state of Cordova called Mar Chiquita. Currently, there is a great program between North America and Argentina, I guess, the United States and Argentina, to try to understand the dynamics of the traveling part of the life of the Phalaropes. Modeling Committee just finished installing 4 Motus towers. These are the towers that will listen to pinging from radio collars or radio tags on the birds, and they can track them. And these towers are being set up throughout the Americas now. In Colombia we have 4, and we're getting more and more. So we're trying to understand more about what's going on with these birds. Interesting, beautiful little birds. They have interesting gender roles. The males actually are the ones that sit in the nest, and the females still lay the eggs, but then they migrate as soon as the eggs are laid, and the males will raise the chicks, wait until they fledge, and then they can migrate. I have a really interesting story about them, but we'll avoid it now. And again, the migration is one of the most amazing migrations of a little bird about this big, in the Americas. And it's worth understanding more what's going on, especially in this era of climate change, which is habitat destruction, Misenio. And anyways, just one of the key birds in the Mono Basin. This bird, the spotted sandpiper, is also like the phalaropes. The females have the brighter spots. This is a female. And the males have dull spots. Again, the female have multiple partners, have multiple nests. She will lay the eggs, and then she's about doing her thing. while the males are sitting on the nest, raising the chicks, incubating the eggs, raising the chicks, and waiting for them to fledge. You can find them actually readily available to see if you want to on the creeks that feed Mono Lake. And you just can go around there and you will see them. Pretty noisy birds, actually. When you kind of startle them, they will call back. Violet green swallows, again, beautiful little birds, is known to nest in the tufas on the lake. And but they also use three cavities, and also big migratory birds. They go all the way down to South America too. So again, another species that we need to be worried about with habitat destruction and climate change and availability of food, especially during those long journeys. And then we're going to go to the pretty ones, Lysula buntings. The males have unique songs. You can find them here in the Mono Basin. If you want to see one for sure and put in your life list, go to Old Marina by the bathroom every spring and you'll see one there for sure, okay? Hint. Very beautiful, brilliant bird. Migrate all the way down to Mexico, southern Mexico, and spend a winter down there. Greyhound owls, big bird. I was talking with one of the workers here, with Diego, that works here at the committee, and we were talking how that the mortality of these birds is kind of high now, and a lot of it has to do with getting hit by cars. They fly low like barn owls, and they get hit by trucks and cars all the time, and it's really sad. But it's a beautiful animal. I wish I had more of this at the Outdoor Education Center to take care of my gophers, but that's another story for another time. Beautiful bird found around the Mono Basin. If you want to see one, go to Jeffrey Pine Forest, and you can see them there. I'm not here, okay? Osprey, before 1983, this is what I understand, there were very not ospreys in the Mono Basin. That's when they started to show up, is what I heard. And now we have many pairs of ospreys in the lake. And people ask, how come a bird nest in Mono Lake where there are no fish in Mono Lake? And of course, this is a bird that we tag, actually, Eastern Sierra Audubon Society. Then we bought a tag for one of these birds and went all the way to the Sea of Cortez, Bahia de California. And so they can fly far away. So how difficult it is for a bird that can migrate that far away to just fly to one of the lakes or the creeks near Mono Lake and get, as you can see in this photo, a nice little juicy trout. A interesting bird because it has adapted to carrying their fish with their heads in front. So their talons are like this. So they can rotate the fish and put the head in the front, aerodynamics, and they can go long distances. Like look at a bald eagle hunting, they will just grab it and the bird is sideways and they don't go that far. But an osprey can switch the bird and really, go far away with it. Great divers, and if you have never seen an osprey diving feet first into the water, they can literally go 2-3 feet in the water looking for fish. I'm going to give you a little anecdote. One time I was in Yellowstone on one of those lakes, and people were fishing at this dam, fishing and fishing, catching nothing. And here comes this pair of ospreys. First dive, and they grab fish. So humans fish, ospreys catch. Okay. Bald eagles, again, beautiful local bird. They're doing better. They were having a really hard time, especially in the 60s, along with the peregrine falcons and other raptors. Beautiful, majestic birds. If you haven't seen one, go out there and check it out. Golden eagles, again, another one of the largest birds in North America. Actually, very common bird in the northern hemisphere of the world, and they can be found anywhere, all the way to Siberia, in Russia and Northern Europe. So very, very well adapted bird. Little kestrels. And I'm trying to look at my time. Okay, we're doing good. Now, brown creepers. Who have seen a brown creeper? Who have taken a picture of a brown creeper? Good luck. Thank you, man. That's, by the way, Mr. Cannon is one of my sponsors. I'm going broke because of Cannon. A cute little bird is the only creeper that we have in North America, and you can find them, in the hills up here in the trees. Have a little nice high call, high pitch, and they have this behavior of climbing, going around the tree trunks, and then they jump to another tree and go up and catch bugs, and that's what they do. Beautiful bird, little bird in the area. White-headed woodpeckers. Have we seen them? Raise your hand if you have seen a white-headed woodpecker. Okay, the usual. Uh, Pine forest specialists, nest cavity visitors, and incredibly gorgeous bird. If you see one, you're going to want to keep seeing them because they are absolutely beautiful birds. You can be walking in this forest of brown and green and the blue sky, and this little white head just flies in front of you, and you're going to go, whoa, I got to chase that bird and see it. Population is declining, habitat lost, a lot of burning forest, a lot of snags not making it longer than they used to, and so these birds are having a really hard time. Western tanager, interesting bird. I called, the Sierra has 420 miles length, and I say that we have 1.5 species of tanagers in the Sierras, right? We get mostly Western tanagers, and very rarely we see a summer, right? Very rarely you see a summer. I can take you to a spot in Colombia and sit you, and at the end of that day, I can show you 20 species. But it's interesting though that's 420 miles of Sierra, and we only get one incredibly gorgeous bird. Don't get me wrong, this is at my house, and beautiful birds, and I love their calls really well. Good way to identify them when you're walking in the forest is to hear them call. Red-winged blackbirds, one of the most populous, abundant bird species in North America. Um, Seed eaters, territorial, look in the springtime for the males doing their display, trying to get some territory. Evening grosbeaks. Have you guys seen evening grosbeaks? Yeah, beautiful birds. Actually, we start seeing them in Indio craters. It's a good place where to see them at this time of the year. During migration, they'll come through there. They'll come through town too. This was shot at my house. Beautiful birds, flock in big numbers. I remember one time in the India craters, so over 200 of them, immense flock of them. Beautiful, gorgeous animals. And I'm going to dispel the myth that dippers don't eat fish because I got that picture at Parker Creek, of all places. And I mean, one of the target bird species for a lot of birders that come through our area. Truly aquatic. It's interesting because I have seen the South America, the Colombian version of it, the whitecap, and the difference is that these guys do actually like fly underwater. They will flap wings in pools and fly down to get macroinvertebrates. The Colombian version, or at least the Andes version that I've seen, they don't do that. It's one of the marked differences. Again, beautiful bird, local bird, and go to Livining Creek if you want to see one. Easy to find. Anyway, so conservation challenges for the Mono Basin and its incredible diversity of birds. Water diversion, who will say, right? An eternal battle that started in the 70s and still goes on. The group that I work with, the Mono Lake Committee, we're still, trying our best to convince the Department of Water and Power that Mono Lake is hurting and that we need more water for the lake. There was an agreement signed in 1994, in September of 94, where it agreed to bring the lake 20 feet from the lake dropped 45 vertical feet in 41 years, and we agreed to bring it 20 feet higher. And that was an agreement based on science, based on the ecology of the lake, on sustaining, this incredible rich ecosystem alive. And unfortunately, 31 years later, we're still in the battle. We have not been able to get DWP, big honchos, to understand, that we need this lake to be at that level of 6392 for the lake to be considered a healthy level. Remember, it was 64, 17 feet, right? 25 feet higher. We were asking only for 20 feet. And even with that incredible compromise, even though we beat them in every lawsuit that we fought them at, um, they still pretend that everything is good, everything is perfect, the lake is doing fantastic, and they're not doing anything. So anyway, so water diversions, please get involved. Understand, that this incredible ecosystem, as you can see, just in the bird life, is an amazing place. Is having a really hard time, and we need, an extra 10 feet of water. Well, 9.5 feet of water, but we need those extra 10 feet of water. And so as the lake lowers, habitat is lost. One of the main habitats that was lost with the decline of Mono Lake level was these brackish pools that used to form on the other side of the shoreline of the lake, and they were incredible spots for waterfowl. I did a bird count in 2023 after that big winter, and it was incredible to see when the lake rose, like 5 feet or so, that we recreated. Some of those pools were recreated, and the amount of cinnamon teals and green-winged teals and all kinds of birds up there was just amazing. So habitat loss, right? We need to, again, bring the lake up. The easy. Predation, land bridges in 2017. Remember the big drought we have from 2011 to 2016. By 2017, Mono Lake Committee realized that the islets where the California Gull nest were in jeopardy again for coyotes to move in. The Mono Lake Committee did a fundraise, and we were able to buy an electric fence to stop the coyotes from going and predating on the California gulls, as we know, having a really hard time. Invasive species, climate change, of course, we know that. We feel it every day. If not, just look at the news everywhere. Have you guys heard of the mega floods in China? Have you guys seen the videos of the floods in Beijing? Oh, you guys, incredible, incredible. Remember, we heard of the floods in Colorado, but did you hear about the floods in New Mexico? It's everywhere. So we're doing an amazing amount of altering our climate, and according to the people that study climate, we are supposed to be at the bottom of the pendulum going back up toward a glacial cold period. Yeah, right. There's so much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that that's negating and even actually impacting that natural balance that has been going on for the last 2 million years or so. Human disturbance, right? People, recreation. I don't know how many times I've seen the people in Mono Lake in their kayaks and paddle boards harassing the ospreys because they look cute, and and having to whistle and scream at them and say, what's up? Don't read the signs. That's what I tell my kids at the program. Read the signs. Anyways, so those are the challenges for the Mono Basin and the Mono Basin birds. And so get involved, help with habitat locally at your homes, citizen science, do bird counts, help tag Phalaropes if you are brave enough to be on a boat with a net, or do bird counts like we did last Saturday. We did a local bird count on the shore of Mono Lake. And, spread awareness. Tell your friends. But again, I'm preaching to the choir, but come on, choir, sing louder. Okay, and that's all he wrote for that one. So now we're going to real business. So this is short but brief. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to illustrate in my presentation is that incredible ecosystem and the danger that is going on for that ecosystem. So again, Mono Lake, critical stopover, right? Incredible place. We're losing a lot of lakes. We have lost a lot of lakes just in our local area, right? You can mention the Owens Lake, Walker Lake, the Carson Sink, the Humboldt Sink. Keep going up, Goose Lake, Lake Albert. I mean, just to mention the local ones, right? Lakes that are disappearing, died ecologically speaking. And so places like Mono Lake are like this little beacon, for all these migratory birds that have lost the opportunity to stop and rest in all these other lakes. And Mono Lake has become this one spot that they can count on, counting on us, right? So critical critical habitat with the brine shrimp, the flies, and the bird species facing threats again from wildfires and climate change. An ecological jewel, already, you heard me mention it, the chemistry, bird heaven, food wet base is fantastic, the brine shrimp and the alkali flies, and the location, which we just talked about it. And so climate change, a few numbers here for the Sierra that I was able to find out. By century's end, anything between 2.1 to 4.1 centigrades. Don't talk Fahrenheit, we're talking science here. Centigrades, okay? That's a big jump in temperature, you guys. Big, which means that the possibility of precipitation decline going really high. The numbers I found was 1 to 3%, but who knows, right? It could swing even higher than that. And stream flow reduction, right? The creeks that feed Mono Lake that are being diverted, two of them being diverted still to LA, 1% of their water not going into Mono Lake. That's contributing to the decline on the lake. And the other thing is that the snow is melting earlier, which is also affecting the productivity of the lake in terms of the shrimp. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the California Gull is having such a hard time arriving at no food. That's my photo. You guys remember that big fire? Yeah, that's the Navy Beach fire, right? Or the beach fire that they call it. Fire risk increments for that area up to 20 something percent. More fires, up to 50% more fires, because the vegetation are not holding moisture the way it used to, because they're not getting the water or the snow, and again the temperature change. And direct impacts on birds, right? Loss of nesting areas, foraging sites. Birds are with diminishing habitat have to compete a little harder, which means that a lot of them are not going to make it. Some birds, like on the recent fire, the Mono fire, County Park. I mean, I saw the buildings almost on fire, which they didn't, which was great. My camera was saying it's on fire, but it's not. But my thoughts went, we're in the middle of the nesting season. How many chicks and eggs and nest were vaporized, right, into ashes with this fire, right? So there you are, a classic example of what happened. Mr. Miller, good to see you, sir. And again, for everything, every living creature, breathing that air, with all those fires, is no fun. Migration disruptions, right? Smoke hindering travel time for the birds. They're having to detour, which means that they have to use more energy to get around these areas that are either smoke or flames. Depletes their fat reserves, and the long distance migrants are not finding enough habitat to be able to feed themselves and get strong for the migrations that they do. Indirect ecological consequences, vegetation loss, food web impacts, runoff that we talked already about it, and chemistry of the Mono Lake, for example, as the lake lowers, right, the salinity goes up. So the little creatures that live in the lake, like the shrimp and the flies, have a really hard time. And this is one of the studies. This is my photo. I was there a minute or so after the two lightning strikes happened. I was hiking Sage and Peak, and I saw the storm coming from the southeast, and I got in my car. And by the time I got to the Jeffrey Pine Forest, I saw the two strikes. By the time I parked my car and took this picture, the two fires are started. The one on the left was the one that created the big quagmire. And this one, this rain squall, put it out. Nature did its thing, but not good enough. So, anyways, lightning ignition. Was a lightning ignition. I have a sad story to tell about this fire, and I'm going to touch it briefly. I told the people from Cal Fire which road they could take to go to the fire, and they did not believe me. Even though I'm a member of Levining Fire Department, and I have my plaque of Levining Fire Department in my car, they totally ignored me. And I said, guys, I can show you in the map the very road that you can take where that fire started. They ignored me. About half an hour later, another guy in that truck comes and says, Highway 120 is closed. And as I was driving out, two guys with a map open on the hood of their truck trying to find the area where they were. I found out that they were a visiting crew, and they never called the local fire department, never got in their thick skulls that maybe Levining Fire Department knows this area better than they do and that we could help them. Anyways, I see this photo and I hurt because that big 1,800 acres of that area and almost South Tufa went up in smokes, okay? Because they wouldn't listen to a guy with a funny accent. Sad but true. Anyways, prescribed burns, again, we are doing one of the things that we're helping one of the indicator species, the California Gull, is to go to the islands and do some controlled burns. There's this little weed called Basia that is pesky, and it has been displacing the nesting areas or taking over the nesting areas of the California Gull. So prescribed burns is a good idea. The Monolith Committee is very active on trying to talk with Forest Service and trying to do some work on the islets where the California Gulls nest, so that we can bring back, those nesting grounds. And specific birds that we have spoken already: California Gulls, Wilson Phalaropes, and then the famous ospreys. The California Gulls is an interesting bird because after they were displaced, literally, not completely, but mostly from the Mono Basin, from the islands in the Mono Lake, a big group of them moved to the South Bay in San Francisco Bay Area. And by the Alameda shoreline area, they settled there. And they have been wreaking havoc in the ecology of the baylands. There is an endemic little mouse that live out there that they were really hard trying to recover. These guys swallow everything. I mean, these guys eat anything, literally, okay? So they move anyways to the Bay Area, and they're wreaking havoc in the Bay Area. Usually they go to Southern California. To illustrate really quickly what these animals can eat, the California Gulls, I was with a group of Girl Scouts in Bodie many years ago. And we did a circle because we did a scavenger hunt on the area. And we're talking, and these little three rabbits, little bunnies, come hopping around us between the sagebrush, and 2 or 3 California Gulls come like flying above us. One of them dives down, pecks on the head of one of the rabbits, grabs it by the head, flips it over one of the Girl Scouts girls, and she's screaming bloody murder, flies over her and swallows a whole in front of the poor Girl Scout. They were traumatized. Little bunny, little wicked bunny, was eaten by California Gulls. So imagine what they can do, thousands of them in a pristine ecosystem like the Baylands at the south end of the San Francisco Bay Area, Palo Alto and Alameda. So fire, fire can be good. One of the things that we're learning that Forest Service finally is getting through their thick skull, pardon me, is that they're trying to understand traditional ways that California natives work with fire. And they're trying to ask them and collaborate with them and work with the native tribes that knew fire management in this area and any area in California. So So one of the things is that fire is important, but when you have suppressed this fire for over 100 years, it's not a good idea to have fire. So first we need to suppress and take out, the excess fuel that lives in our forest. Or like a president, never mind, don't get me started. Anyways, I was going to say rake the forest. And I was going to say native plant regeneration through fire is really important, but also the problem with fire is that a lot of invasive species move in and take over. So it's kind of a 50-50 chance that you will get regeneration of local species versus some weed, like clover. I was doing my bird walk last Saturday, found this incredible patch. And I have spent hours and hours with my students removing clover, and we haven't been able to do it. Anyways, fire is good, but fire needs to be managed, and we can do it. And maybe we can learn from the local tribes, and we can do it. Long-term consequences for climate change, and especially the Mono Basin, which I'm speaking about. More frequent wildfires, habitat structure changes, lower lake levels. As of August the 1st, I put this in my slideshow this afternoon. Mono Lake is at 6,382.9 feet, much lower than the 6,392 that is mandated, almost 9 feet and change. And ecological thresholds are crossed, meaning we are disrupting our ecosystems. Conservation strategies, I mean, some of you guys work already active on that. And I do mention the outdoor education program because we do bring people from Los Angeles where the water goes to, and we work on trying to let them know, that they're part of the fight for Mono Lake. And you can also participate in monitoring programs like bird walks, habitat restoration, removing of invasive species, wildfire prevention. We're going too long, so I'm going to call it a day. And safeguarding Mono Lake birds, right? Support conservation, following regulations and guidelines. Don't harass the birds. Just because it's a rare bird doesn't mean that you have to be in their face to be able to get that big shot. Photographers out there. And so respect for wildlife and educate others. Take people on nature walks, and maybe we can create a community. And very quickly, I didn't put this big, but there is a term out there that is being used by climatologists and hydrologists called climate whiplash. Raise your hand if you have heard about climate whiplash. Yeah. So climate whiplash talks about dramatic changes in the way that storms show up or move up. Case study, the fires in LA, right? That wind in the middle, that crazy Santa Ana winds in the middle of the winter, fires started, fires took out, destroyed. The floods in Colorado and New Mexico, the floods going on throughout the world. So anyways, it's something to watch for. Some hydrologists and climatologists are saying, well, maybe it's too much to call it a whiplash, but others that I've spoken with say, yes, it's whiplash. We have created such craziness in our climate that we don't know what's happening where. For example, in South America, growing seasons no longer apply. Just don't. People don't know where to plant crops. They don't know if they're going to get a major drought or rain. Nuts. And the last and most important part, thank you. That's it.